people, filing for Social Security early could result in more net income in retirement. Discover how you could get the most income from Social Security. Call 801-896-9622. 801-896-9622.
Advisory services offered through Boss Retirement Advisors, an SEC-registered investment advisory firm. Insurance products and services offered through Boss Retirement Solutions.
When it comes to your electrical system, do you know the warning signs to look for? What's up, everybody? I'm Mike Wilson with Any Hour Services, and it's okay if you don't know, but here are a few things that you might not even realize could be a sign of a bigger problem. Wall plates that are hot to the touch, discoloration around switches or outlets, if you hear crackling or popping or buzzing around switches or outlets, a breaker that trips a lot, switches that feel loose when you operate them, if your lights dim or flicker when a major appliance comes on, if your plugs fall out of the wall easily. You know, you're not supposed to have to bend the prongs out on a plug just to get it to stay in the wall. If you notice any of these things, you should consider having a licensed electrician check your system out. If you don't know anyone, Any Hour Services has put together a radio-only special for any homeowners listening. One of our licensed electricians will perform a comprehensive electrical inspection and give you a full written report for only $29. But you have to mention this ad when you call. To schedule your comprehensive electrical inspection by a licensed electrician for only $29, call Any Hour Services at 801-443-7300. That's 801-443-7300. Any Hour Services.
Utah's biggest used RV Palooza is back and better than ever. This October 10th through the 12th at the shops at Southtown, you're getting the best deals of the season on used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, motorhomes, and more. Shop gently used RVs at the show and save thousands over fall pricing anywhere else. Find deals starting as low as $9,995, like on a 2021 Forest River Viking LS Series M238 LS tent camper. Plus, shop select new RVs at used pricing, not to mention blowout pricing on all remaining 2024s in stock. You'll also enjoy no payments until 2025 on approved credit. Finish your fall camping season in style without a single monthly payment. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Bring it to the show to get maximum trade-in value. We're even including a 1-year Fish Fix membership with every RV purchase. Your fast track to RV service repairs. And don't miss out on our Hunter Special section to keep your hunting season going strong. All this plus free admission to the Utah Used RV Palooza. 3 days only, October 10th through the 12th at the shops at Southtown. Open daily at 10 a.m. Sponsored by Bish's RV. See you there.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
In Murray, and this is just after 4500 south out of traffic on the right. Experience fall in Cedar City with colors featuring 4 scenic highways, stunning red rock views, recreating, seasonal farmers markets, pumpkin patches, annual sheep parade, and more. Plan a visit at cedarcity.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We have sunny skies and warm temperatures today. In fact, we could come close to the record for the date and possibly again tomorrow. Right now, 79 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com for Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we always begin the show, we want to think again about what we think we know about some of the big issues of the day. One of the troubling trends that we've seen this past year in particular is anti-Semitism. We're getting far too comfortable. It's becoming all too common in American life and in way too many of our institutions. Today I had an incredible conversation with Rabbi Meir Soloveichik, and over the next 30 minutes, we are going to unpack, explore, and learn about some of the founding principles, some of the people from our founding as a nation, and some things that we absolutely need to think again about and how they apply today. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
The story of Jewish influence on America's founding is a fascinating yet often overlooked chapter in our nation's history. Despite their small numbers, Jewish Americans played a significant role in shaping the ideals and principles upon which the United States was built. Through the lens of George Washington's interaction with the Jewish community, we can gain invaluable insights into the Founding Fathers' vision for America and the hopes of religious minorities in this new nation and how it actually applies to us today. We want to pull all of those lessons forward, and we are absolutely thrilled and honored to have joining us on the program today Rabbi Meir Soloveichik. an American Orthodox rabbi and writer. He's a renowned religious leader. Rabbi Soloveitchik serves as a world thinker and educator. He's one of my favorite moral voices. He stands on that commanding heights of moral imagination and helps us to think about things different and I think about them better. And Rabbi, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Boyd. It's a joy to be speaking with you today.
So you were here in the Beehive State last week down at the Wheatley Institute and talking about this unique connection, and it has a very personal connection to you in terms of where you spend most of your time. Give us that history and connection.
Yes, so one of my jobs is the privilege of serving as the rabbi of Congregation Shereth Israel in Manhattan, otherwise known as the Spanish and Portuguese Synagogue of New York, and it's the oldest Jewish congregation in New York and in all of North America. It was founded, and its origins are linked to the arrival of 23 Jews in 1654 in what was then New Amsterdam. And given that they were many, many miles away from any other Jewish community on the planet, these Jews ultimately called themselves She'erit Yisrael, She'erit Israel, which is Hebrew for the remnant of Israel, and held fast to their traditions, even as New Amsterdam became New York, and then ultimately that New York became the first capital of the nascent nation that was the United States, in which these Jews were incredibly patriotically involved, really from the revolution onward. And so to speak of the story of the Jews and the founding is to tell stories about Jews that are very much linked to my own community. And it's a deeply personal story for me.
Yeah, it is a personal story. It's a story that I think we don't talk nearly enough about. And so many of these interconnected portions with the founders, I think, are so vital to really getting to the essence of what this nation is really about, what those principles and values are. And again, even though it was a very small community there in New Amsterdam, this remnant, which I just love in and of itself, we could spend an hour just on that element of it.
Yes.
But George Washington had a unique connection to your community in that space,
Yes.
wrote a series of letters. Describe those for us.
So I think the best way to start with this story is to tell first not of the letters he wrote, but of the letters he received. And then we can, through that lens, look at the letters that he wrote to the Jews of America, which are absolutely remarkable. So the story begins, and this is the story I told when I visited Wheatley at BYU last week. The story begins with a fascinating person that was from my community by the name of Jonas Phillips. Jonas Phillips is a truly Jewish story, but it's also a truly American story. This is a German Jew who arrives in 1756 in South Carolina, makes his way to New York, and becomes one of the pillars of my community. He marries there, and he has, I'm not making this up, Lloyd, he and his wife have 21 children together.
Wow.
And remarkably, as I think I joked at the BYU, he was truly American Jewry's founding father. and remarkably for that time, I think a huge percentage of his children lived into adulthood. So you can imagine the family that he must have had.
Yeah.
Now, he was a patriot. When the British took Manhattan, he, in advance of that, fled. Manhattan was occupied by the British for most of the Revolutionary War. So he fled to Philadelphia, helped build a separate community there, which they called Mikveh Israel, the Hope of Israel. One of the earliest donors to that community was Benjamin Franklin. And he served in the Revolution and actually became very prosperous and stayed in Philadelphia after the war. And when 1787, the Constitutional Convention met in Philadelphia, Jonas Phillips wrote a letter to the president of the convention, to George Washington, whom he may have known already, because we know he knew other founders. We know that he was pretty close with Benjamin Rush, the signer of the Declaration of Independence and the most famous physician in America. And so he wrote a letter to the president of the convention. And it's an absolutely remarkable letter. And I would urge your listeners just to Google Jonas Phillips, George Washington, and they'll see this letter. And the letter was essentially a complaint. He was writing to complain because in Pennsylvania, given the oath that needed to be taken in order to serve in the state legislature, the nature of the oath effectively meant that Jews were not able to serve in the legislature. And because the oath called on Jews to affirm certain tenets that they did not believe. And so he wrote to Washington and to the convention saying, this is not the equality that I fought for in America. And he wrote, the Jews have been faithful Whigs, meaning patriots, and they have fought and bled for liberty which they could not enjoy. And what I said is, it's kind of astounding. There's a lot of, to use the technical Latin term, there's a lot of chutzpah here that's going on in this letter because, compared to my ancestors in Lithuania or Poland, Jonas Phillips has an amazing Jewish life. He's prosperous. He's not afraid of pogrom, but he's essentially saying that if I cannot simultaneously serve my society by taking part in its civic discussion while still openly highlighting my identity as a Jew, openly reflecting my faith, if I can't do both simultaneously, then I am not genuinely free and then I'm not genuinely equal. Yeah. And the amazing thing, Boyd, and I pointed this out at BYU, if you look at the top of the letter, he dates the letter first with a Jewish date. He writes 26 Elul, which means that's basically where we are now, right before Rosh Hashanah. And then he writes and then he writes September such and such, 1787. So why is he he's writing? There's no one Jewish in the Constitutional Convention, but he's writing the Jewish date is 26 Elul. Or if you prefer the Gentile date, here it is.
Here's your option.
And his point is, exactly. So what's he doing here? But the point is he's saying, these are both me.
Yeah.
I want to be fully American and I want to be fully Jewish. And the truth is, Abraham, you'll recall, in Genesis identifies himself to others as a stranger and a neighbor. I am a stranger and a neighbor among you. Mm-hmm. And citing my great uncle, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, a great Talmudist and philosopher, I pointed out that that's often what it means to be a person of covenantal faith amongst others that may, have an entirely different approach to religious tenets. Yeah. You seek to be a neighbor, to be part of society, but you're also set apart by your faith. And in contrast to, say, post-revolutionary France, where they addressed that by effectively just making a secular public square, Washington's ultimate answer, though he didn't respond to this letter, Washington's ultimate answer was to help create a society where everyone was equal and everyone was also free to bring what makes them different into the larger society as well.
Yeah. Lots to unpack there in my conversation from earlier today with Rabbi Meir Soloveitchik. And we're going to stay with the question and with the conversation and this whole idea of making it both free and equal, that everyone can bring their whole authentic self into the public square, that we can not pack your faith just behind closed doors in your home or in the synagogue or in your church or mosque, but that you can bring that whole authenticity, that authentic you into the square. And then what happens when we create space for that to happen? We'll continue the conversation coming up next. Stick around.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson. 1 year later.
This is a music festival. Teenagers came to hear music, to dance.
We were just trying to stay alive.
What is the chance for peace?
Multiple missiles penetrating that missile defense shield, one north of Tel Aviv.
We explore what the future holds in a widening conflict. The war in Gaza. This week on KSL News Radio.
Did you know that your largest investment asset might not be your retirement account or home? I'm Jay Jackson, CEO of Abacus Life. Most people don't realize that their life insurance policy is actually an asset they can sell. But for almost 20 years, Abacus has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors just like you. We've even created a free policy value calculator at abacuspays.com so you can find out in seconds what we might pay for your policy. There are no fees and no obligations, just information. Knowing the value of your life insurance policy is as important as knowing the value of your home, your equity portfolio, or your finances in total. Discover the valuable information you need to understand the current market value for your life insurance, and then get real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus. Visit abacuspays.com to learn more and use our free policy value calculator today.
When I decided to lose weight with Soda Weight Loss, it wasn't just so I could get back in a size 6. Although, I shouldn't minimize the thrill of that after 30 years.
Yeah, you might as well mention it.
It's thrilling. But the reason I did is because I got so frustrated. I couldn't figure out how to do it myself. I kept trying to eat healthy, and I thought I was eating healthy. And I still couldn't walk around the block without getting winded. This is Rebecca. She's one of the awesome nutritionists at Soda.
I'd recommend it to anyone who is just at that point where they're frustrated and they need guidance, because they will get that here, and they'll have a full team of nutritionists that are dedicated in truly teaching them how to eat better so they can live a longer, healthier life and be there for their families.
Yeah, here's the other thing you need to know. No injections, no pills, no hunger. How is that possible? It's possible because Soda has figured out this is not a diet. This is you changing the way you interact with food. Find out how they can help you. Go to sodaweightloss.com. It's spelled SOTA, and it stands for State of the Art.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Common Spirit Health. Hospitals, clinics, and caregivers all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness.
Jeff Kaplan. When you're online, that's sometimes a source of fourth-hand information. Somebody does the reporting. Another website Googles, they find it, they rewrite it, and by the time you read it, you know the old game telephone. But KSL is a source of primary information. We have reporters on the street. They're out in the field finding out the details. And the difference between online and KSL News Radio, night and day.
Jeff Kaplan's Afternoon News, 3 to 7 on KSL News Radio.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a major intersection along the Bangor Highway will be closing for the next year. Second, President Biden promising any resources the federal government can provide as Hurricane Milton approaches the Florida coast. And third, warm weather this fall means possible hazards from toxic algae for duck hunters and their dogs. 79 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
We're going to stay with this question and conversation with Rabbi Soloveitchik, and we're going to go back to your the first time I heard you speak, and it was on this very point in terms of being able to take your whole authentic self into the public square. You brilliantly talked about the soul of man being that kindle for God, and being able to have the menorah on the outside of the window rather than just the inside, that you do take it into the public square. And so let's jump into that portion, because that leads us to where Washington ultimately went. But you have articulated this in such a powerful way, and I love this whole idea of a stranger and a neighbor. I think we all can think about that, and again, that covenant relationship that people have within their faith, and that we also have with one another as we come together in society.
That's exactly right. On the one hand, to belong to a particular faith community, to be part of a unique community. At the same time, the Declaration of Independence is its own covenant. Richard Niebuhr put it, a covenant is the pledging of responsibility in the presence of God. That's what the Declaration is. In support of this Declaration, with a firm reliance on divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor. And so America is, as it were, a covenant dedicated to an idea. Or as my late great friend, the late British Chief Rabbi Jonathan Sachs put it, Israel, ancient and modern, and America are the only nations that were explicitly founded in conscious pursuit of an idea. And so there is a larger covenantal aspect to the United States that can unite people of diverse beliefs. But precisely because the founders understood that they were creating a covenantal nation, they turned to the imagery of the Hebrew Bible in order to evoke this concept of covenant. So you have the suggestion made by Franklin that the seal of the United States should be an image of Moses and Pharaoh at the splitting of the sea, with the motto, rebellion to tyrants, obedience to God. And it's this that becomes manifest, this concept, in George Washington's letters to the Jewish community. And that's what I spoke about at BYU, how you see this incredible biblical language that appears actually in one of the less known letters that Washington wrote to the Jewish community, which I also think is the best, actually. So we could talk about that now, if you'd like. That's the letter to the Jews of Savannah.
Yeah,
which is an absolutely incredible letter.
Yeah, let's unpack that a little bit, because I think that letter in particular, I'm with you. That is, I think that is the most significant of them all.
Right.
For a lot of very
exactly
subtle,
right.
a lot of very subtle reasons, nuanced reasons, and I think there's a lot of instruction that we need right here in 2024 from that letter.
Yeah, exactly. So it's actually largely unknown. The letter that everyone knows about, and justifiably because it's an incredible letter, is the letter by Washington to the Jews of Newport. But that was the second letter. As I described in my lecture, George Washington was sworn in April of 1789 at Federal Hall in New York City. And immediately after, the different faith communities each sort of got together. Here I'm talking especially of minority faith communities, and each wanted to reach out to Washington to wish him congratulations, but effectively to ensure their own equality in the new in the future of America. And so all the Quakers got together and sent Washington a letter. All the Baptists sent Washington a letter. All the Catholics got together and sent Washington a letter. But as I said, the Jews spread out all over America weren't that great at getting their act together and unifying to send Washington a letter. So they sent in 3 letters. You're talking like maybe 1,000 Jews in America, 3 letters. And poor Washington, who's such a gentleman, is probably wondering, why do these people keep sending me letters? What is happening here? But he's very cordial, so he responds to each one, and he knows also what they're worried about. And so each one writes to him, and when you look at a lot of the letters, you'll see celebrations of the Constitution, because the Constitution at a federal level, this is addressing intentionally or otherwise Jonas Phillips' concerns. It bans religious tests for national office. It doesn't address state governance, but it bans religious tests for national office. So the Jews see this incredible symbol of equality in the Constitution, and so they write to Washington to celebrate that. So the first letter Washington receives is from the Jews of Savannah, Georgia, and this is June 1790. And Washington writes back to them to say, "You're right. We are giving the world an entirely different model of what equality means. Or as he put it, I rejoice that a spirit of liberality and philanthropy is much more prevalent than it formerly was among the enlightened nations of the earth, and that your brethren will benefit thereby in proportion as it shall become still more extensive. Happily, the people of the United States of America have in many instances exhibited examples worthy of imitation." So he says, you're right. We, America, when it comes to freedom of religion and religious equality, we deserve to be imitated. Now, he could have, just ended the letter there, because he knows once the Jews get this letter, they're going to publicize it. It's not because they're going to keep this private, okay? Because, this is gold, right?
Yeah.
You receive a letter from George Washington, you got to let people know.
That's right.
So he could have. He knows that everything he writes can be in the public eye. So he could have just ended it there, but he doesn't. And he adds an ending paragraph, which is absolutely unbelievable. And what he says is as follows, and I'm going to read every word except the last word just because I can't pronounce the last word. So he says, "May the same wonder-working deity who long since delivering the Hebrews from their Egyptian oppressors planted them in the promised land, whose providential agency has lately been conspicuous in establishing these United States as an independent nation, still continue to water them with the dews of heaven, and to make the inhabitants of every denomination participate in the temporal and spiritual blessings of that people whose God is," and then he gives an English rendering of the Hebrew personal ineffable name of God that Jews do not pronounce. So it's really unbelievable because he's writing to them, he's saying, your story inspires our story.
Yeah.
Your story is a God who took you out of Egypt, and we see that same providential God at work in the story of the birth of America. And we hope, Washington says, that we can all share in the blessings that God has bestowed upon you. You will not find a single public address to the Jewish people from the time of the destruction of Jerusalem up till this point that is anything like this from a head of state to Jews. Nothing. Nothing can compare to this. Wow. And it's being written to a very small group of Jews in Savannah, Georgia. But of course, it's part of Washington's larger thinking. Washington is trying to think about how to help create a society that has both unity and difference. And so he's very conscious of what he's doing as he's writing these letters. That's part of what he wants to do. And in that respect, we think about Washington as a leader in war and as a president that helped the Constitution get started. And of course, that's true. But as the historian Michael Meyerson points out in his book, Endowed by Our Creator, Washington is also a hero in the story of religious liberty in America. And that's what he's doing with his letters. But it's also highlighting uniquely vis-a-vis his letter to the Jewish community, the way in which the founders were inspired by the Jewish story and utilized the Hebrew Bible as a lens by which to look at the revolution and the founding.
We're going to stay with the conversation with Rabbi Meir Soloveichik. When we come back, we'll look at how we can apply these principles from Washington, his letters to the Jewish community back in the 1700s, to what we need to deal with anti-Semitism here in 2024 and beyond. Stick around. We'll be right back.
It's 1:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. We have breaking news. A judge has granted a permanent injunction against Amendment A on Utah's fall election ballot. That's the amendment that would remove the income tax earmark for public education. It's similar to the legal challenge against Amendment D, and it appears Amendment A will still be on the ballot, but votes for it will not count. We'll bring you more on this as soon as we have information available. Well, summer may be over, but the risk of harmful algae is not. KSL News Radio's Candy Zilale explains.
Waterfowl hunters and their dogs are at risk this hunting season because the warm temperatures mean algal blooms are sticking around longer than normal. The Utah Division of Wildlife Services is warning hunters with dogs to be careful and aware of these algal blooms. Spokesperson Faith Heaton Jolly says that some dogs have gotten sick or even died. Jolly also says that even when temperatures start getting cooler, this does not mean that all of the algal blooms will disappear.
And hunters should check the Utah Division of Water Quality website for updates on algal blooms before they go out. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. Hurricane Milton, a Category 4 storm right now, expected to make landfall tonight. President Biden is among those urging people who haven't left already to evacuate coastal communities in Florida.
I know it's really tough, leaving behind your home, your belongings, everything you own. But I urge everyone in Hurricane Milton's path to follow all safety instructions as we head to the next 24 hours.
The White House has created a Reddit account now to counter what it says is a huge amount of false information circulating about hurricane relief efforts. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up now 411 points on the day, while the NASDAQ is up 92. And our KSL weather, pretty warm today and tomorrow. In fact, we're close to setting new records. That's next. KSL News Time, 1:32.
You know what's great about KSL's traffic coverage? Trained traffic reporters and real listeners.
Trading information and making the commute safer and faster for everyone.
Every 10 minutes on the nines, we have you covered on KSL News Radio.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time, and man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for energy tax credits to help pay for the windows. And we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
When Dee and I build our new home, and it's almost been 10 years now, I think of all of the appliances that we put in that house, and I cannot tell you how many of them already we have had some major repairs and even replacements. You know the one thing that I haven't given a second thought to? It's the Connecticut soft water system. It is remarkable. We've had 2 systems in 2 different homes, and not once have we ever called with an issue to my friends at Connecticut. It's time for you to call Connecticut. If you're replacing an old system or if you're building a new home, whatever it might be, you will be amazed at how efficient the Connecticut soft water system is. For example, when your neighbor puts in 3 bags of salt in his or her system, you will be putting in only 1. It's remarkable how efficient it is. Give them a call. Great people to do business with. Call Northern Utah's authorized Connecticut dealer at 801-576-8600 or go to softwaterutah.com.
Many people worry they're not making the right investment choices inside their 401ks. Did you know that you might have a little-known opportunity to add some additional investment choices to your 401k and get the help and recommendations you've been looking for? This exciting feature is called a self-directed brokerage window. And the best part? The money still stays within your 401k. Learn how the trusted advisors at Capital Wealth may be able to expand your investment portfolio. To learn more, call or text the word VISIT to 801-877-9800 or go to CapitalWealth401k.com. Improving your 401k might mean the difference of retiring a few years earlier. Let's find out. Schedule your no-cost 15-minute consultation with the Capital Wealth team today. Call or text the word VISIT to 801-877-9800 or go to CapitalWealth401k.com. Advisory services offered through Capital Wealth Advisors, LLC, a state of Utah registered investment advisor.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's DinoPay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meese.
The crash we had on northbound I-15 in Murray just after 4500 South has cleared. It really didn't cause any problems, but we are back to a crash-free commute on all of your Valley freeways. Fall is upon us at Murdoch Chevrolet. Take up to $10,000 off a new Blazer EV or Equinox EV. Murdoch Chevrolet in Logan or Woods Cross. MurdochChev.com. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
And look for highs in the 80s through this week. We'll be close to the record for the day tomorrow. Right now, we're at 82 degrees with sunny skies. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
I want to stay with this now, and I want to start applying some of these principles to some of the real hard challenges, the uncomfortable conversations that I think we have to get to in our nation today. And I think what you've laid out, Rabbi, is so important as foundational because it's principles. When we get back to those principles, we can have conversations about just about anything. And right. It gives us a basis to both see it more clearly and chart a path more resolutely and more confidently, covenant confidence, to move it all forward. And so let's take a look at some of those things. Obviously, we're in a very tumultuous time in our nation and around the world. We've seen a rise in anti-Semitism on college campuses and other elite institutions around the world. What kind of conversation and what should we learn from these early exchanges between George Washington and the Jewish community that can be instructive for us in having some of these uncomfortable conversations today?
Right. So I think the correspondence between Washington and the Jews is actually incredibly relevant for our current moment. I've seen those speaking out against anti-Semitism who cite the famous lines from Washington's correspondence with the Jews of Newport, the most famous phrase of the sentence, which is actually written originally by the Jewish leader of Newport who wrote to Washington. Washington was just echoing these words. But Washington described America as a government which gives to bigotry no sanction, persecution no assistance. And so you will see those that cite those words in speaking out against anti-Semitism. And that, of course, is appropriate because bigotry of any kind is un-American toward any group. But I think there's a larger and deeper point that we have to understand here. And it's Washington's letter to the Jews of Savannah that allows us to understand it. In those circles, the anti-Semitism, the anti-Israel hatred that we see manifest in certain parts of the academy, that hatred actually goes hand in hand with anti-Americanism, Boyd. And so when you will see rallies celebrating enmity toward Israel, when you see anti-Semitic rallies, very often the American flag will be desecrated at these rallies as well. And the reason for that is, I think, because these people engaging in hateful action, what they also hate is the way in which America has seen itself as exceptional and covenantal. And they hate that too. And they understand deep down the way in which the biblical Jewish story has inspired America's understanding of itself as a covenantal nation. And they understand deep down the way in which the miraculous story of modern Israel has further inspired so many Americans in the way they see God's providence at work in the world and how that impacts their own understanding of covenantal identity. And so this needs to be seen not just as a danger to Jews in America. It needs to be seen as a danger to America. In an article about this, and I also said this at BYU, I cited one of my favorite stories from one of my favorite biographies, which is David McCullough's biography of Harry Truman. And Truman was vice president, not really told anything about what was going on. And he's rushed from the Capitol to the White House into a room where Eleanor Roosevelt is waiting for him. And Eleanor Roosevelt says to Truman, "Harry, the president is dead." And Truman was really a very nice person in these situations, right? It's not even thinking about what this, doesn't seem to be thinking about what that means for him. He just says to Eleanor Roosevelt, "Is there anything I can do for you?" And she says to him, "Is there anything we can do for you? For you are the one who's in trouble now." So I cited the story, and I said that since October 7th, I've received many wonderful messages from faith leaders in America and friends evincing concern for the Jewish community. And what these messages have largely been in substance are, is there anything we can do for you? And that's very, very much appreciated. But the larger message I want to make is that actually what the phenomenon of anti-Semitism made manifest in elite areas of American life, what that actually means is that we, all of us as Americans, are in trouble now. Because what's at danger is what's being targeted is the covenantal identity of America. So it's important to cite not just letters from the founding fathers about bigotry being bad, though of course bigotry is bad and un-American, and it's important to emphasize that. There's something deeper happening here. And I think all of us as Americans, Jewish or non-Jewish, have to understand what this threat to our country actually is.
Yeah, and to me, it gets to that whole essence of one, you have to make friends before you need friends, and the day the journey begins is not the day the journey begins, and those journeys usually begin by those covenant relationships, by that interconnectedness that we find in this country. That leads us away from just the politics of it and even the policy of it, but it gets back to the principles and the people. That's where this great experiment began, and that's where we have to stay grounded, because if we don't put that first, there's no way that we can create a society that's really going to last.
Exactly right. I cited from Rabbi Sachs one of my favorite comments from him, because I often find, as with Tocqueville, you appreciate the uniqueness of America more when you see yourself as an American through the eyes of an outsider. So Rabbi Sachs has this wonderful story about him visiting the United States, I think for the first time as a student, I believe a college student, and he visits Washington, D.C. And what strikes him when he visits memorials is that they feature not only statues but also words, the ideas affiliated with these leaders, these individuals. You see Lincoln, famous statue, of course, but you also see Gettysburg Address, Second Inaugural. Jefferson will have Declaration of Independence, Virginia Statute of Religious Freedom. And then, as Sachs said, in London, the memorial for David Lloyd George has 3 words on it: David, Lloyd, and George. And the statue of Churchill has just Churchill, even though, as I think Robert Sachs notes, words were kind of important to Churchill.
He said a few things.
Once or twice he may have given a speech. He was a reluctant speaker, but if you really pressured him, he was willing to give a talk. So his point is that the way he put it was Britain at least was a tradition-based society.
Yeah.
Those who belonged, they knew what it was. They don't, and if you don't know, if you didn't know, that showed you didn't belong.
Right.
But that's, I think, how Rabbi Sachs put it. But America, and these are really Rabbi Sachs' words, I'm just paraphrasing, America is that rarest of examples of covenant society. Yeah. And so these words are ideas that bind us all together.
Yeah.
That's what it means to be part of the covenantal society that is America.
Yeah.
But it's just this notion that America, of course, to assert that America is a covenantal society and that it's therefore exceptional is not, of course, to assert that it's a perfect country. No one would ever say that.
For sure.
Or that its history is. No one would say that its history is not without sin.
Yeah.
That is, of course, not what's being asserted. But there are those that hate the very notion of America seeing itself as covenantal and therefore called and therefore exceptional.
Yeah.
And that goes hand in hand with the hatred of Jews and hatred of the Jewish state that is being manifested in some spheres of American life today.
And that's such an important part of that whole process. And we were very fortunate on this show. We one of the very last interviews that Rabbi Sachs gave before his very untimely passing was on our show. And we go back to that regularly. It's an inspiration point for me. And we actually spoke last week of this very idea of tradition versus covenant. You and I must be on the same study schedule with the Sachs Foundation. But we love that. And we do understand and recognize that in this country that we have not always lived up to the principles we profess to believe, but yet it's even in our brokenness that we come together back around the principles because they are the ties that bind us and give us that path forward.
And the path forward has been in the name of those principles.
Yes. Fantastic. Wonderful insight, inspiration as always. Rabbi Meir Soloveichik, so grateful to have some time with you today. Grateful for you to taking us to the mountain, that commanding heights of moral imagination. I think we've all explored that and thought some things a little bit different today. Thank you so much for making time and for continuing to be a moral voice and a voice for the covenant component that is unique to this place we call America. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you, boy. The privilege is mine.
KSL Broadcast Group contests are open to participants 13 years of age and older that are residents of Utah, Idaho, Wyoming, and Nevada, unless otherwise specified. Employees or agents of the station, Bonneville International Corporation, or other area radio stations, or any entity associated with the contest may not enter. Persons who have won in the last 90 days from a station contest or event are not eligible. Full general contest rules are available at kslnewsradio.com.
If you're living with dry age-related macular degeneration or dry AMD, you may be at risk for developing geographic atrophy or GA. GA can be unpredictable and progress rapidly, leading to irreversible vision loss. Now there's something you can do to
slow it down and get it going slower.
Izervay is proven to slow GA progression.
Izervay. Izervay gets GA going slower.
Izervay or avacincaptad Pagel is a prescription eye injection used to treat GA. Don't take it if you have an infection or active swelling in or around your eye. Izervay can cause eye infection, retinal detachment, or increased risk of wet AMD. Izervay may temporarily increase eye pressure. Your vision may be impaired after an eye injection or exam. Don't delay. Ask your doctor about Izervay today.
Izervay gets GA going slower.
Visit Izervay.com. That's IZERVAY.com.
Hey BYU fans, this is Mitch Harper. Undefeated BYU football is back from the bye week and ready to host the Arizona Wildcats in Provo. And to get ready for the Big 12 cat fight, visit your local Macy's grocery store for all of your game day needs. They've got great prices on all of your favorite game day items like the burger patties, made fresh dips, and more. And did you know your favorite tailgate foods are also now offered through Macy's Catering? They offer a wide variety of catering platters from the smoked meats, wings, and even desserts. Catering is available to order online or in store. So whether you're having a small or large party, Macy's has you covered. And never miss a deal when you sign up for Macy's Rewards program so you can get their weekly ads sent straight to your inbox each week.
Hi, this is BYU captain and defensive end Tyler Batty. It's football season again. Make sure to shop your local Macy's grocery stores for all your favorite tailgate foods.
Get game day ready with Macy's. Happy shopping.
We were living in D.C. and we were ready to buy our first house, but it was in Salt Lake City.
I found out through family that the house that my dad grew up in was put on the market.
We had less than 24 hours to put an offer in, and it happened to be on New Year's Eve.
So we immediately contacted our realtor. She was on it from the very beginning. We got the house.
We got the house. Being 2,000 miles away, our realtor really helped us. And there's no way we would have gotten the house if we didn't have our realtor.
Discover how a realtor can make a real difference at myrealtorstory.com.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
With the three things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, a third district judge has issued a permanent injunction against Amendment A, the constitutional provision that would get rid of the earmark on income taxes for public education. Second, the White House has created its own social media account to counter misinformation about hurricane relief. And third, warm weather means the risk of toxic algae blooms continues into Utah's duck hunting season. 82 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Inside Sources.
Inside Sources.
America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Well, as the election draws near and as tensions continue to escalate and as information and misinformation and disinformation continue to fly around, it's important for us to look at the integrity of the election and why we should have confidence and trust in it. And we are thrilled to have in studio today our Lieutenant Governor, Deidre Henderson. Thanks so much for joining us.
Absolutely. Happy to be here, Boyd.
You gave a terrific speech on why we should have confidence in this whole process. And as you and I geek out on history things, you started with a history lesson, and I want you to share it with our listeners because I think it's powerful. I think it's also really instructive.
Well, thank you. You know, Utah has this history of loving voting a lot, okay? Utah women were the first in the nation to earn the vote, to get the vote back in 1870, or actually the first to cast a ballot under an equal suffrage law in 1870. And then they voted for 17 years. And Congress passed a law that outlawed their ability to vote after 17 years of voting. So then Utah women were just, they banded together, all political persuasions, women of all ages, and they had this goal to get their voting rights back with statehood. But that wasn't an easy thing. Utah had applied 7 times, for statehood before they got statehood. And so tensions were really high in 1895 when the state had its constitutional convention. There was this thought that if we put women's suffrage, equal suffrage, in our state constitution, that would be so controversial that maybe the Constitution wouldn't be ratified or that Congress wouldn't approve it. It would somehow upend our 7th chance to get statehood. And some people even suggested that the women should just say, you know what, for the good of statehood, just forget about us. let's get the Constitution without women, and we'll pass an equal suffrage amendment later after we're a state. But the women wouldn't hear of it. They wouldn't budge. And so they decided, ultimately, these all-male delegates to the Constitutional Convention decided that if the price of statehood is the disenfranchisement of half the population, then it wasn't worth the price.
Yeah. Ugh. It's such a powerful lesson. And, of course, ultimately that did all get through. We did become a state. Women have the vote. And we've taken great pains over the years to protect that right and to ensure that people can cast that vote, express themselves with great confidence.
Absolutely. The idea that you can have easier access, better access, broader access to the ballot and secure elections, those two things, you can have them both. Yeah. And that is what Utah has built our election system on, those two principles. And it goes back clear to statehood. Yeah. We value access to the ballot. We value people's constitutional right to vote. And you can have both security and access.
Yeah, I love that. And it's one of those classic fake fights and false choices. Those are compatible principles. We all need to remember that. It's also interesting, and you've been on this in particular during your time as lieutenant governor, in an odd way, take the politics out of voting.
Right.
I love that.
Politics out of elections, right? We're going to take the politics out of elections. We really have done that in the state of Utah, and the way we've done that is the legislature very deliberately over time has put into place these systems that allow, in some states, vote by mail would seem like a partisan issue, but in Utah, it's not a partisan issue. It's just a policy issue. It's a policy decision, right? And so we've been able to kind of step back from the partisan fighting about election administration and just do what we think is best policy-wise, what is best for the people of the state of Utah.
Yeah, we always say that it is so critical. We've stress-tested the nation in pandemics and world war and economic collapse. We've never stress-tested it in the absence of trust, especially in our institutions. And so let's talk for a minute about why we should have that trust and what we need to be wary of as we get a little closer to Election Day, some of the things that might try to undermine that trust and confidence we have in the system.
Well, trust is an incredibly important part of a free government. You can't have free government and strong political institutions that actually protect and preserve people's liberty and freedom without trust. And, my party, the Republican Party, the state of Utah, even a little bit, we kind of have a natural distrust, right, toward government. But it's important for people to remember that government is them. Government is the people. And the people express their will through the ballot, through voting. And so we don't want to undermine government to the point that nobody trusts it, because what are we left with? We're left with hollow institutions, with no friends, no supporters that are so weak that they're open to corruption. And so that trust is important. It's important to make sure the government is doing things that they're supposed to be doing. It's important to reform. It's important to improve processes. But wholesale distrust is something that we really do need to guard against. We need to make sure that we remember that we, the people, are the government.
Yeah, it is us. It is us. And so let's talk about some of the things that you've called for in terms of things that we can do as individuals, as families, as neighborhoods, as communities, as we roll towards that first Tuesday of November.
Well, I think the first thing I would ask people to do is to just doubt the doubters. If there are people who are actively trying to undermine or shake your faith and confidence in our election system, maybe take a step back, look at where that source is coming from, and go to authoritative sources. Go to vote.utah.gov. Talk to your county clerk. Don't always just trust the doubters. Doubt the doubters before you doubt the entire system. The second thing is to make sure to take your ballot into your own hands, right? You're responsible for your ballot. Go to vote.utah.gov to register to vote, to check your address. And there's a really, really important thing at vote.utah.gov that you can do. You can sign up to get text notifications sent straight to your phone so that you can know when your county clerk has sent your ballot. You can know when your county clerk receives your ballot. And you can know when your county clerk has actually counted your ballot. So those are some really important things that people can do.
So it's so important, and it's so simple, right? Everyone says, well, I want it to be simple. I don't have time to do this or that. That's one way to be very confident and very certain that the process is moving forward. And I know so many of our county clerks have really thrown the doors open in terms of transparency. That if you have a question, call them. Go in. You can walk through a lot of those and see it for yourself.
All the processes for around elections are open to the public. So yes, they can count ballots. They'll be verifying signatures in public. They'll be counting ballots in public. They will be auditing those results in public. And that's a process, you can go take part in if you would like. You can go observe, or you can, talk to other people who have gone and observed. But all of this is done in the light of day. Nobody wants to conduct an accurate election that actually reflects the will of the voters more than the county clerks and the people who run the elections. Yeah. These are your friends and neighbors. These are good people who, many of them have done it for decades. I've even heard of one gentleman who's done this for so many, like 20 years, and he's not going to do it this year because he's so frustrated by the way he feels like he's been under attack. Yeah. So, let's just check ourselves. Let's make sure we're being kind to each other, that we're assuming the best. If there are problems, we want to know about them. We want to hear about problems. We're not talking about legitimate criticism or calls for reform or dissent or anything like that. But attacks that fundamentally undermine people's faith in elections, unfounded accusations, rumors, just those are the things that we really want to guard people against.
Yeah, no question about it, because we have to have trust in that system and process, and we appreciate your transparency and your willingness to talk about all of these issues and to throw the doors open and say, this is why we do this is how we do this. And I don't think anyone in the country does it better than the state of Utah.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
It's 2 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top story this hour. We have breaking news about Amendment A. A 3rd District judge has issued an injunction against Amendment A on Utah's fall ballot. This is the provision that would remove the earmark on income tax revenue for education. The court ruled the legislature did not meet the requirement to publish the amendment in newspapers statewide 60 days before the election. That's the same issue that led to the Utah Supreme Court invalidating Amendment D. The ruling means that while Amendment A will show up on your ballot, votes for or against it won't count. Utah Governor Spencer Cox starting an initiative that he says will double the amount of power that Utah produces over the next 10 years. He's calling it Operation Gigawatt, not only focused on producing more power in Utah, but also improving the state's policies around clean energy, investing in innovation, and increasing the capacity of the state's power grid. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. The storm warnings have been posted, the evacuation orders issued, and now it's a matter of waiting for Hurricane Milton to arrive. ABC's Jim Ryan is in Tampa, where the anxiety is rising.
2 weeks ago today, Hurricane Helene brushed Florida's west coast, bringing dramatic storm surge.
That was 4 to 6 feet, and that was more devastation than I've seen in my life.
Now Tampa Mayor Jane Castor says
Milton is bringing the possibility of bringing twice as much storm surge here.
An 8 to 12-foot surge that threatens to inundate any one-story home in its path. Jim Ryan, ABC News, Tampa.
And the storm expected to make landfall late tonight. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average up over 1%, 431 points since trading began today. And the NASDAQ is up 108. Our KSL weather, we're flirting with new records for today. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:01.
We hope you have the right app on your phone for news. You probably have dozens.
But the KSL News Radio app, well, it makes our live stream super easy.
Plus, our talk shows are right there as podcast for your workday.
That's the app for KSL News Radio.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
This is Jay Broadbent from Alpine Home Medical. I'm excited to let you know we're currently having a sale on power scooters. As we celebrate the spirit of freedom and independence, we want to make sure you have the chance to experience it. We have a wide range of power scooters designed to enhance your mobility, and they're all available at a discounted price. These special offers only come around every couple of years, and once they're gone, they're gone. Come visit us at any of our 11 locations to take advantage of these fantastic deals. Or you can browse our selection of discounted scooters on our website. We're committed to providing the 5-star experience. We can't wait to assist you in finding the perfect power scooter. Visit us online at alpinehomemedical.com. That's alpinehomemedical.com.
Alpine Home Medical, we bring wellness home.
Already, Dee and I have 2 very special events planned for Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. We've got a birthday and we've got an anniversary to celebrate in the month of October. And of course, it just wouldn't be a grand celebration without Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. And sometimes, too, you just need, not want, you need the perfectly cooked steak. Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, nobody does it better. And it's prepared exactly the way you want it. Now, Dee, she likes her steak a little more well done than I do. I like mine medium. I like ribeye. She likes hers a filet, and sometimes they will butterfly it so it's cooked absolutely to her taste. Then those side dishes are off the charts. The dessert, you've got to save room for dessert when you're going to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. This is the time, just like Dee and I have done, make your reservation. Celebrate that great occasion at Ruth's Chris Steakhouse, downtown Salt Lake City, and of course, Hotel Park City.
The Management Minute is a service of the MBA program in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. I'm Professor Scott Hammond. Almost every day I get a request from a colleague, student, publisher, or publicist that is urgent. Urgent for them, but not always urgent for me. How can we know which requests are really urgent? Some asked, what is the cost of a quick response? Sometimes more time makes for better quality responses. Others ask, how flexible are the deadlines? Many deadlines are artificial, but some are really hard. Others ask, what is the cost of the delay? Or what is my responsibility to help that person? One CEO I know used to say, if it's urgent for someone else, it's urgent for me. He would always respond within 24 hours, often with late-night emails. Learn how to lead in an ever more urgent world with an MBA from Utah State University. Go to utahstatemba.com. That's utahstatemba.com. I'm Scott Hammond. Hope to see you in one of our classes.
Traffic and weather together, brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. Here's Ricky Meeks.
Valley Freeway traffic looking really good right now. No accidents, no delays. We also have a problem-free drive on our main secondaries, but we have had some slowing southbound Mountain View corridor approaching 3500 south. Prep for winter. Get a furnace inspection from a certified heating contractor to check for safety and efficiency. A reminder from Unbridge Gas. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see highs in the 80s through the week. We're close to the record for today and tomorrow. Right now, 82 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomis from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Inside Sources. Inside Sources. America's voice of reason. Boyd Matheson on Utah's home for elevated conversation. Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
As we often say, the day the journey begins is not the day the journey begins, and it's how we travel together that matters across our differences to build bridges and to create a better future for everyone. Let's begin.
Think you know the news of the day? Think again with Boyd Matheson on KSL News Radio.
Well, it is time to think again about what we think we know, and we're going to do that in a most unique way today. We're very grateful to have joining us on the program, Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, Anglican priest, theologian specializing in Christian church history at Oxford's Pembroke College. His accomplishments are many. His influence is immense. He is someone who has a unique connection to the Beehive State. He'll be speaking down at the Wheatley Institute, Brigham Young University, tonight, and joins us on the line. And Reverend Teal, thank you so much for making time for us on what I know is a very busy day for you.
Boyd, it's great to hear you again, and it's a privilege to speak to you.
Well, let's start with this walking together. I think one of your unique gifts is your ability to reach out, link and lock arms with people across faith differences, across cultures. Give us a sense of why we need that more than ever in our society.
Well, when you just described it in that way, my mind immediately jumped to Luke's gospel, where two dejected people after the death of Jesus in Jerusalem are walking back to Emmaus, and a stranger comes along and opens up a conversation. You know, they say, as we can do rather cruelly, "Are you the only person who doesn't know this?" And that's one way of having a religious discussion. But Jesus doesn't pick them up on it. He just engages with them and goes through all the different things to expand their minds and hearts so that they can see that wonderful overarching arc of the purposes of God, the love of God. And I think we do that walking together. We do it with people who we don't expect are going to be the means whereby God actually leads us on. So one of the things that it's great to do is to have conversations just with your neighbor. In one of the lifts in a hotel in the center of Salt Lake, it said when I first came, "Let's start a conversation worth having." And I think that little postcard that someone had just stuck on the wall, I think it's really, really important to start conversations and build trust and understanding, and based on integrity. And there's a place in that for both reverence and wit.
Yes. I so love that. And the reverence and wit I'm going to come back to, because I think they go hand in hand so beautifully. And it is that beginning, that road to Emmaus moment that we all get, that first meetings are so important, especially because they often lead to so many different miracles. I literally just walked off the stage of a One Kind Act summit that was about building community, and we had Bishop Phyllis Spiegel from the Episcopal Diocese. We had Bishop Oscar Solis from the Catholic Diocese, Reverend Sandra Lucas from the Church of Scientology, and Rabbi Spector from Kolami Synagogue, and Elder Derek Miller from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and Dr. Salman Masood, who's the part of the Utah Muslim Civic League. And I wish you had been with us. It was an extraordinary road to Emmaus that led us to some higher ground as we covered a wide range of things. But it all started with that reverence for one another. So take us through reverence, and then let's get to wit.
Well, okay. I mean, one of the things that we do is nowhere near as high-powered as that. I've not met the current Episcopal bishop of the Diocese of Utah. But I really liked the last one, Bishop Ayashi. But what we do in Oxford in a very small way, every Thursday we have what we call open theology session. We invite people, but not only students and faculty members, but also people from faith communities around Oxford. We usually end up with about 8 or 9 faith communities and about 30 people. And we look at different stuff. We've looked at difficult differences in doctrine, and we've looked at that together. We've looked at how people understand Jesus, and from Hindu and from Jewish and from different traditions. And what really is important is, as well as people coming and teaching us to listen, because listening is quite a difficult art, actually, there's a sense in which we then become each other's advocates. One of the things that sticks in my mind is a conversation between a Palestinian Muslim man and a Jewish Israeli woman. And both of them were able in that context, because we're walking trustfully and reverently together, to say, actually, it's really hard to bear all the expectations that people pour on us, especially in this time of conflict. And the rest of us knew that we were standing on holy ground, not so much walking together, but taking off our shoes, because there was something absolutely sacred about this moment. And so if in that sort of context, one was trying to score points, that would have been an open goal for somebody to have sort of just said something unpleasant. But whole community held and was led on because of the honesty, because of the reverence with which these two communities, which represent two nations at war.
Yeah.
So it was an incredible moment. a small moment, but one of those. Sometimes when you climb the Wasatch Front and you look out onto the beautiful different landscapes and cities. The magnitude of it gets you, but sometimes it's the tiniest little flower that you see this small little sign of resilient hope in this massive context, and that's how it feels. It's not earth-shattering. It's not being the big names, but it's working also with people, many of whom are students, and trying to model a life which is based on listening and cooperating and understanding rather than asserting and arguing.
That's so powerful, and it is that when you make that climb to higher ground, and then it's common ground, and then as you said, Reverend Teal, then it's holy ground. And that's such an extraordinary space that we need to find, or we need to be willing to climb to, not just for the magnificent view, but as you said, for the small details in God's creation and the holiness, the reverence we see in one another. I know you have a unique connection and relationship with President Jeffrey R. Holland of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles and his son, Elder Matthew Holland. And I know part of that is not only this reverence you have for one another, but you all have some pretty amazing wit. And that is such an important part. I want you to describe that for us.
Well, it's not limited to those two.
Yeah.
but you can see that both, I don't want to blow anything personal, but both Mary and David, his son, as well as Matthew, have grown up with the clown of God, the person who is willing to expose both strengths and weaknesses, but do so in a generous and open-hearted way, which bubbles out. And it's not just President Holland, President Jeffrey Holland, but the beloved Sister Pat was just so kind and gentle, but witty too. She was one who could observe something and make you laugh at yourself. No one's done that more for me than David. At my first ever conference I went to, I thought he'd been appointed as my minder, but here he was sitting next to me with these Monty Python lines all the way through. And there's something you can say that you should always have a friend whom you shouldn't go to anything serious with. And he was, I mean, that's the only time I met him on that occasion of the conference. But he was that sense in which he was not afraid to draw from all of the wonder and significance of what it means to be a human. Aristotle describes human beings as rational animals which laugh. And I think, in a sense, if we're just rational, if we're just sort of focused on the serious stuff, we miss its real significance. A laugh can do something. If you see something that's funny and beautiful, even when the door is strictly barred and locked, humor and love and the yearning for the other person in joy can carve its way through. So I do think, in a sense, it's that indispensable. It stops us taking ourselves too seriously, and it also holds up a bit of a mirror when we sort of deceive ourselves into thinking we're this or that.
Yes.
But it's not mocking laughter. The laughter of the angels is encouraging laughter.
Oh, I love that. The laughter of the angels is encouraging laughter, and I love it that you reference that mirror back to ourselves, especially when we take ourselves too serious or think we're all of this or all of that. And share with us just a little bit, Reverend Teal, because I think part of what you described in this sharing of wit is also this element that I think we also lack in society today that keeps us a safe distance from important conversations, and that is some courageous vulnerability, that willingness to not put on those airs or that brave face and being a little bit more vulnerable.
That's a really good question, because we live, as this weekend has addressed, some of the tragic polarization that we're seeing all around us, both personally and politically and socially. That's not the answer. And the vulnerability, when we see somebody's wounds, when somebody is able to not try to spend all their energy covering up, but to to use that as a way into touching another's wounds. I think it was the Knights Templar, when they were fighting or whatever it was, they would always, if somebody were wounded, they'd always put their arms on, and I think we get the thing of a pressure, so that we put the pressure on a wound to stop it burning or bleeding or whatever. I guess wounds are something that take us to that level of what it is to be human and to inhabit our contingency and our penultimacy, that we can think of ourselves as this is it, and I'm in charge of who I am. I'm the only person who has a right to say who I am. But the acknowledgement of vulnerability invites other people into us, and we discover that the wonderful paradox that actually I don't know who I am. I need you to be in a relationship with me, so that we find out. And ever more like an unfurling flower, ever more petals of life open up because we're with other people, that engagement with others. And I think vulnerability is absolutely necessary. We all know how awful it can be when we see people we love, or when we do ourselves, when we take ourselves so seriously and just get angry, and we all do this. I certainly do this. Yeah. But there's a way of touching wounds which is different from pressing buttons. And I guess perhaps we're afraid that if we show our wounds to others, they're just going to exploit it. Yeah. Some of the things that happen outside General Conference, I always chuckle about this, is the people will come and stand on the corner and shout, yell at people going in, people who are wanting to go in to reflect upon the joy of the gospel, and to hear things which will shape their self-understanding and their faith. And it's really sad. But one of the wonderful things is having to go through that and all the puzzlement of how do I respond? I'm coming to the point of understanding you don't try because you get dragged into an argument. But then you go in, and there's a sense in which together, in General Conference, for example, you're with the people of God, and you can pray for those who are provoked, because we have this access to joy and to understand what repentance is. It's not beating somebody up. It's that joy of being human and changing our minds. Yeah. So I'm guessing that actually vulnerability is because perhaps we actually don't trust that's the way that God wants to help us to grow up. Yeah. And so we become. Somebody once said that in life, it was actually a beautiful man from Yorkshire in England, that if you're going to minister in life, you have to have a buffer. You can't be destroyed by everything that happens. You have to, he would say, is it called a fender or a bumper? What do you call the things on the front of a car in America?
A bumper.
A bumper. You have to have a bumper. He said, but you mustn't be a rhinoceros. You mustn't be impregnable, because then you won't be of any use. You will just charge with your sort of horn to rip at other people. But you do need to protect as well. So I guess there is that sense of recognizing when you're in a safe enough place to be vulnerable. Yeah. And I think that's one of the wonderful things about being in community, in the church community, that actually, one of the highlights of my week is Elders Quorum, where people, I go to Ward 1 in Oxford, will not posture. They won't. It's not about, oh, aren't I clever? Oh, I've done marvelous things. But people will talk honestly and share positive and negative. And that's an environment which seems to me to model real but proper vulnerability.
Yeah. Oh, I just love that. If you're just joining us, we have the Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, Anglican priest, theologian specializing in church history at Oxford's Pembroke College, is here in the Beehive State this week. And Reverend Teal, I know you've got another speech to give and a few more things to to do before your day. Your promises to keep and miles to travel are done for the day anyway. But I want to close out with just some of your thoughts. I think these are part of your gifts and your unique ministry in your faith and across faith. is your radical curiosity and your profound compassion. Again, things that we seem to be missing a lot in society that I think hold the key to overcoming some of that divisiveness that you alluded to.
You know, I guess we sort of get into tribes, and we can write people off. And if people say something, they use a word perhaps, or they're known to be the opposite political party or to have a view on social issues, then we can write them off. Everything about them is wrong and tainted. I hate to sort of whinge about social media, but it's heartbreaking to see that, sort of attacking of other people. And they're not really attacking other people. They're hitting out. And that's not going to be fruitful. I mean, if somebody says something, even if it's offensive or hurtful, it's very hard to do that. But if we have the time, i.e. not if we're rushing to our seat in general conference, and you've got to be there 30 minutes before it starts, if you've got time to actually then say, oh, why do you think that? Not in a patronizing way, but to really sort of open oneself to, there's obviously something that's made this person think or feel this way. And it's my duty, and we will all benefit if we try and understand from one another what that is. And perhaps, even in that process, the bits of me that are incomplete, that are systematically wrong, that are hidden away, can move into the light and themselves be healed. So I think there's that recognition of our corporateness, that we are one body in Christ. And that means we don't just talk to those whom we think are perfect. We make friends with those who are wounded and lost and angry and frightened and incomplete, because that's the way we are. But look, God loves us even as we are, but loves us too much to leave us like that. One of the things that Jeffrey Holland says is that, come as you are, but don't expect to stay that way. And that's not a threat.
Yeah.
That's a promise. That's a glorious promise.
Yeah.
That nothing about you, whoever's listening, nothing about any of us will not, in the fullness of time, be thrilled with the wonder of his love. And that love, we will be surprised at the breadth of its scope. We'll be surprised at what God's wonder and wisdom does. And our part in it. We're invited to be part of this.
Yeah.
What does God think he's about? He knows all about us, and yet trusts us to be part of this unfurling of his creation, and to find that actually tonight we're talking about the eternal man, the Truman Madsen lecture, that actually the eternal man, Jesus Christ, is our truest identity. That's who we are. He's claimed us as his own. He's called you by name. He's written us on the palm of his wounded hands. And he trusts us. What? But it's that sense of entrustment which can help us to entrust ourselves and to handle other people with tenderness and a healing touch rather than pointing the finger.
Yeah, so powerful. Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, so grateful to have you on the program today. We look forward to hearing you this evening, the Wheatley Institute down at Brigham Young University, and just a fabulous perspective. Thanks for helping us get to a little higher ground today. So many wonderful applications. We're so grateful to have you here in the Beehive State, and grateful for your friendship and the way you teach all of us to walk on that road to Emmaus. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for what you do. God bless. Bye-bye.
All right, that's Reverend Dr. Andrew Teal, again, Anglican priest, theologian specializing in Christian church history at Oxford's Pembroke College. We'll be speaking at the Wheatley Institute tonight down at Brigham Young University. And that is a walk with a friend, and linking and locking arms with people like that. Interfaith, across faith, people of no faith, in community. As we learn to understand each other a little different and a little better, we can get to that common ground, which is always found on the higher ground, and ultimately that leads us to some pretty holy ground that makes our neighborhoods and communities, our society, and our country just that much better. We'll be right back.
Think again on Inside Sources with Boyd Matheson.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time. And man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for Energy Tracks credits to help pay for the windows. And we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
At Macy's, we're proud to be local and support local. Carrying local products and produce is important to us. We are proud to support our local growers and bring peak freshness to you and your family. To make shopping local easier for you, we have added Utah Proud tags beneath local products. As you shop our stores, look out for the tags as you shop and show your pride for local Utah companies and growers. Thank you for shopping local yourself by shopping at Macy's. Macy's, happy shopping!
Common Spirit Health, hospitals, clinics, and caregivers, all connected to advance healthcare in Colorado, Kansas, and Utah. Healthcare with human kindness is here. Hello, human kindness.
It's 2:30 at KSL News Radio. I'm Dan Bomas. KSL's top local story this hour. A judge has granted a permanent injunction now against Amendment A on Utah's fall ballot. That's the amendment that would remove the income tax earmark from education. Similar to the Amendment D legal challenge, it appears that Amendment A will still be on the ballot, but votes for or against it won't count. Utah lawmakers are working to expand a program that would notify homeowners when changes are made to their county property records, part of a larger effort to fight fraud. Salt Lake County Recorder Rochelle Hobbs tells David Dujanovic it's not real common, but it does happen.
Sadly, it's a growing problem, especially among our elderly. And due to the success of this system that we launched in Salt Lake County, it's now offered statewide.
Typically, the scammers pretend to be the landowners selling homes and property from right under the real owner's feet. Our top national story this hour from ABC News. More than 1,000 airline flights have been canceled as Hurricane Milton approaches the Florida Gulf Coast. Airports in Tampa and other cities in the path of the storm have been closed. Orlando has the most canceled flights, about 400 right now. Your money at this moment, the Dow Jones average closing the trading day up a full percent to 431 points. The NASDAQ closed up 108 points. The S&P 500 closed up 40. Our KSL weather, very warm day. We're pushing a record. That's next. KSL News Time, 2:31.
It's a priority for us at this station to bring you all sides of a story and to talk about the news fairly. completely.
Get all the facts and be really aware. Utah's Morning News with us, Tim and Amanda.
Weekday mornings 5 to 9 on KSL News Radio.
I started my soda weight loss journey over a year ago, and it is so nice to be heading into the fall and winter holidays looking and feeling so much better than I did at this time in 2023. Best of all, I let go of that 70 pounds of fat and didn't have to use any medications, get any injections, or deal with any crazy side effects. My fellow soda client Vicky got amazing results too.
I have shed over 72 pounds and lost 47.5 inches of body fat. And I am off of every medication for the first time in my life. Oh my gosh, I'm so ecstatic about that.
Well, that excitement's contagious, isn't it? If you start now, you could be down 30 to even 50 pounds by the end of the holidays. It's as simple as going to sodaweightloss.com. That's SOTA weightloss.com and clicking on Request a Nutritionist Callback. Soda is the #1 rated weight loss company in America for client results and client satisfaction. And you know why? Because soda is, say it with me, state of the art.
My name is Brian King, and I'm running to be your governor because Utah is headed in the wrong direction, and we can do so much better. If you're frustrated by politics today, if you feel like politicians aren't listening to you, if you're looking for something different, for a leader who prioritizes common sense and bipartisanship, you have a place with us in this campaign. Join us and vote for Brian King for governor by November 5th. For the better.
Paid for by Brian for Utah.
Tim Jr. here from RGS Exteriors. I want to tell you about our famous "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. That's right. It's a warranty you don't need, but we give it to you anyway. Let me explain. Most warranty problems for siding, gutters, and windows are caused by not installing stuff right in the first place. If you rush the work, cut corners, or use subpar materials, you're just begging for problems later. At RGS Exteriors, we don't tolerate careless workmanship. We slow down, focus on every detail, and use only the best materials. We prevent warranty work by doing the job right in the first place. That's why the 10-year everything guarantee we give you is also known as our "You Don't Need a Warranty" warranty. We absolutely will be there if you need to use it. But honestly, you probably will never have to. Done right the first time. That's the RGS way. For siding, gutters, and windows, call 801-280-3110 or visit us at rgsexteriors.com.
Trail mix, beef jerky, mixing all the soda flavors at the gas station soda machine. Snacks are better on the road. The gas is better when it's top tier. And the pit stop is better when there's a dinosaur there. Love the filler moments at a Sinclair gas station near you with DinoCare, our top tier gasoline. Some sweet and salty snacks for the commute, and a big green dino for the memories. Find a gas station near you at sinclairoil.com. Sinclair, fill up your life.
Traffic and weather together brought to you by Sinclair's Dino Pay app. Save up to 20 cents per gallon. And here's Ricky Meese.
One small accident. It's in Utah County, southbound I-15 near Pleasant Grove Boulevard. The vehicles are over to the left shoulder out of traffic. And we've had already a little bit of heavy and slow traffic southbound I-15 in Weber County getting into 5600 South Roy. Ricky Meese in the KSL Traffic Center.
We'll see highs in the 80s through the week. We're close to new records for the day today and tomorrow. And right now, 84 degrees and sunny. I'm Dan Bomas from the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios. Listen online at kslnewsradio.com. We're Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Hear elevated conversation on crucial issues. Boyd Matheson on Inside Sources.
Well, as America prepares for new leadership in 2025, the opportunity to reimagine federal higher education policy is front and center. The current system, of course, while providing educational access to many, often props up low-quality programs and neglects promising alternatives like apprenticeships. By focusing on transparency and accountability and diversifying the educational pathways, guess what? We can think again about what we think we know, and we can actually reshape the landscape to better serve students, taxpayers, businesses, and our communities. Preston Cooper is a senior fellow at the American Enterprise Institute, where he does his work and focuses on higher education ROI, student loans, and higher education reform. And Preston, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Boyd. Thanks for having me back.
Great stuff. This is a great piece as you talk about 6 ideas to fix higher education. And some of them are structural components, and some of them are more process pieces. They're all so vital, though, to reimagining what we do with all of this. And so let's kind of start with this idea of transparency, because I do believe if you want to change something, you got to understand where you are. It's like that red dot on the map at the mall. If you don't know where you are, you can't chart a course where you want to go.
I think that's exactly right. Higher education transparency is so important because there's a lot of great college programs out there, but there's a lot of not so great college programs out there. And students really need to have the data to understand what the outcomes of these different degrees are before they get into them. And the good news is this has been a pretty bipartisan issue. The Obama administration, the Trump administration, and the Biden administration have taken steps to expand the amount of data available to students on higher education outcomes. And I hope that, whoever takes office in 2025 will continue and expand these efforts to release data on, what students can expect to earn after graduation and how much they're going to pay for college.
Yeah, I think understanding all of that totally changed the dynamic as a young student or sitting down with their parents or counselors or whoever it may be to chart their course, to be able to say, okay, here's what I can expect, here's what the path looks like, and having some of that transparency is so vital. You have another piece that I think goes hand in glove with the transparency, and that's the benchmarks, the accountability. I know this is radical stuff to be thinking about from government, but kind of walk us through, what does it mean to actually get to some of those standards and benchmarks?
Well, sure. I mean, transparency is great, but it's often not enough. I mean, sometimes the rules that we're putting out around higher education need to have teeth, so that if you are a college and you're getting funding from the federal government, especially student loan funding, and you're not producing outcomes that are up to snuff, maybe you should not be eligible for federal student loan funding anymore. Maybe you should not be, putting students in tens of thousands of dollars of debt that they're never going to be able to pay back. And we actually think that the president right now has the power to take some action on his own in order to address this. The Secretary of Education actually does have the power to cut some low-performing colleges off of the federal dole, and we think that he or she should use that power come 2025.
Yeah, that's a game changer when suddenly there is that benchmark and that accountability process on the backside of the transparency. I think is so vital. Another area that I love that you got into in this piece that I think is so vital, and that is just this experimentation, this entrepreneurial approach to higher education. I always say a company, if it doesn't have a skunkworks team or if it doesn't have a pilot program going in some way or another, they're going to die, because that means you're just doing the status quo over and over again. So what would that look like if you kind of went down this skunkworks pilot program? Let's do a blue sky shoot the moon model.
That's a great question. And there's good news here, too, because the Secretary of Education actually has the power to launch some of these pilot programs, small-scale pilot programs, on his own without the need to pass a bill through Congress, which, as we know, is a challenge. And basically, we can waive various laws and regulations, governing how the federal financial aid system is supposed to work, and say, hey, we can start providing some pilot funding for, say, apprenticeship programs or workforce training programs through the existing, Pell Grant program, for instance, and try to, see if students succeed in these alternative models. And if they do, then that could be the basis for potentially a broader program that Congress maybe could potentially create if those programs are getting results.
Yeah, I'm so glad you pointed that out, that there are things that just can be done. We'll talk about what Congress can do in a second, but I just want our listeners to just let that settle for a minute. I always say when someone tells me in an organization that they have a funding problem, they would do this or do that, they have a funding problem, my response is always, no, you don't have a funding problem, you have a leadership problem. Or if someone in government says, well, we can't do this, we can't do that, it's like, no, you have a leadership problem. And I think what you just outlined, Preston, is a leadership problem. If the executive branch can do this and is not doing this, then they're really not leading. And I think that's another area where we, the people, have to then weigh in with some transparency and some accountability as well.
I think that's right. Like I said, the Secretary of Education has the power to do some of this stuff right now. It's not going to be huge sweeping reform, but they can certainly do more than they're doing. And there's certainly a lot that can be done in terms of experimentation to really try new models that might benefit students more.
Yeah. All right. Let's jump in real quickly just to some of the structural things in terms of what Congress can do. Most of that is around kind of those funding components. Give us just a quick snapshot in terms of college responsibility, some graduate student loans. Give us a quick sense of that.
Well, I think the fundamental issue right now is that colleges have access to basically unlimited student loan funding from the federal government and face basically no accountability for it. So I think there's a couple things that really need to be done here. Number one, we should make colleges responsible for unpaid student loans. If you want to charge students $100,000 for a degree in finger painting or something else that's, not going to get them a good job, maybe the college should be on the hook for some of that. And maybe they'll be incentivized then to either lower their prices or start offering education in fields of study that will actually lead to a good job. And the second thing we need to do is actually to cap how much students are able to borrow from the federal government so that the school is not able to charge $100,000 for that silly master's degree and is not able to just, take money from the federal government and face basically no accountability for it. And I think especially at the graduate level where, students who are in, high quality graduate programs like law or medicine could easily get funding on the private market. There's very little justification for, the federal government to intervene here. That's certainly a place where we could limit the amount of student loan funding going out.
No question. I'm going to save your last point for the next time we have you on the show because I love this overhauling the federal student aid to support more of those alternatives, more of that apprenticeship programs. I think that's one that deserves a deep dive. But this is fantastic thinking. This is the kind of way we have to reimagine what's going on if we really want to have some change. Preston Cooper, Senior Fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. And Preston, as always, thanks for joining us. Fantastic thinking. Great to have you on the show.
Thank you.
We'll step aside for one last break. More Inside Sources coming up next on KSL News Radio. We'll be right back.
1 year later.
This is a music festival. Teenagers came to hear music, to dance.
We were just trying to stay alive.
What is the chance for peace?
Multiple missiles penetrating that missile defense shield, one north of Tel Aviv.
We explore what the future holds in a widening conflict. The war in Gaza. This week on KSL News Radio.
Hercules Credit Union is the place to go so you can have confidence in your financial future. They've been all about growing stronger together since 1946, and right now is a great time to look at your home mortgage. They have low interest rates, a competitive rate. They're at their lowest they've been in a very long time. They have flexible mortgage options, a variety of products, fixed, adjustable, FHA, VA, including options for those with less than perfect credit. Why? Because Hercules Credit is going to help you grow stronger together. They also have a fantastic first-time home buyers program. They have the ability to specialize the mortgage and offer a very low down payment option to bring home ownership within reach of you and your community. There's also support beyond the mortgage itself. Of course, the ongoing financial support that you need, advice for members, all of that is part of Hercules First Federal Credit Union. You can check out their locations in Taylorsville, Harriman, or Riverton, or you can always find our friends at Hercules online at HerculesCU.com. That's HerculesCU.com.
With Progressive's Name Your Price tool, you can easily find coverage options that fit your budget. If only it was that easy to name your baby.
How about Jaden?
Nope.
Okay. Michael?
Went to middle school with a glue-eating Michael.
Sebastian?
Dated one in college.
How about Damien?
Vampire name.
All right. Greg?
Not feeling it.
Okay. No worries. Jeffrey?
Oh, love that one.
Wait, really?
No.
Find coverage options that fit your budget with Progressive's Name Your Price tool. Get a quote at Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law. Not available in all states.
Wendy's breakfast burrito has an entire breakfast in every bite. Fresh cracked eggs, seasoned potatoes, American cheese, cheese sauce, and sausage or bacon. So the first bite is like fresh cracked American cheese sauce. Bacon. And the second bite is like fresh American cheese sauce, bacon. And the third bite, you get the idea. The boss of breakfast burritos, gotta be Wendy's.
At participating U.S. Wendy's during breakfast hours.
Join KSL Radio's Mitch Harper along with BYU football captain Tyler Batty at Macy's in American Fork Wednesday from 4 to 7. photos, meet and greet Tyler from 6 to 7, win football tickets, Macy's gift card, and much more.
I finally decided a few months ago that enough was enough with the high electrical bills in the summer and the high heating bills in the winter, and it was time to replace our builder-grade windows of our 20-year-old home with the latest and greatest windows from Advanced Window Products. Ever since Jake and Nate showed me a demonstration of what a difference the right kind of window can have on my home's energy use, I couldn't get it off my mind. So my wife and I decided it was time. And man, am I glad we did. From the moment Ken showed up to give us a free in-home estimate, we've had such an outstanding experience through the entire process. Within an hour, we had financing set up, and then about 8 weeks later, the crew showed up and did what we thought was going to be a 2-day installation in a single day. Now our home is more comfortable. Our electrical bills have started to drop. We qualified for Energy Trax credits to help pay for the windows, and we even took advantage of their expertise and replaced our sliding glass deck door with one that has a pet door built in. Look, I know you don't make a decision like this on a whim. You do your research. So do that. But make sure you call Advanced Window Products at 801-850-9100, and you can get a special deal of $3,000 off 10 windows or more if you mention Andy when you make the appointment. 801-850-9100 or go to advancedwindows.com.
The impact of a meal goes well beyond feeding our bodies, because when people don't have to worry about where their next meal is coming from, they can truly thrive. Like Marta.
And now we'll hear from our class valedictorian, who with our hard work never ceases to amaze us. Please welcome Marta Moreno.
And Alex.
Hey, Alex, how did the interview go?
I did it! I got the job! I can't believe it!
I knew it. Let's meet up later to celebrate.
And Diego.
Mom! I got first place at the science fair with my volcano project.
That's amazing, sweetie. Congratulations.
Because when people are fed, futures are nourished, and everyone deserves to live a full life. Join the movement to end hunger at feedingamerica.org/actnow. Feedingamerica.org/actnow. A public service announcement brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Head to Logan for funky fall fun. Jump on your brooms and join us for a fantastic fall break. Here's what's brewing. The North Logan Pumpkin Walk, October 10th through the 15th. Okay, there's no way to describe this amazing and colorful experience, but I will try. There are hundreds of carved pumpkins, plus dozens of displays crafted from painted pumpkins, gourds, and other random vegetables. You have to see it for yourself, and it's free. Celebrate Utah's Harvest Heritage, October 18th and 19th at the American West Heritage Center's Fall Harvest Festival. Grain threshing, apple pressing, pony rides, train rides, antique tractors, games, and fun. Get your scream on all month long for spooky encounters on the historic downtown Logan Ghost Tour, or traipsing through a couple of giant corn mazes that may or may not be haunted. Check out live theater and music performances, great restaurants, golf, and USU football games. Head to Logan for funky fall fun. Explore logan.com/fall.
For over 22 years, speaking on business on KSL News Radio has been a beloved tradition, celebrating our heroic business leaders and Utah consumers who have helped build one of the strongest state economies in the nation. Now, under the stewardship of the Salt Lake Chamber and hosted by Chamber President and CEO Derek Miller, the program continues to shine a spotlight on those who make Utah's business environment dynamic and thriving. With his expertise and passion, Derek brings the stories of our business community to life. As part of the Salt Lake Chamber, Speaking on Business is proud to continue its legacy of highlighting inspiring stories, trends, and special guests. Support Utah businesses now and be part of Utah's thriving economy. More information can be found at slchamber.com. That's slchamber.com.
Utah's biggest used RV palooza is back and better than ever. This October 10th through the 12th at the Shops at Southtown. You're getting the best deals of the season on used travel trailers, fifth wheels, toy haulers, motorhomes, and more. Shop gently used RVs at the show and save thousands over fall pricing anywhere else. Find deals starting as low as $9,995, like on a 2021 Forest River Viking LS Series M238 LS tent camper. Plus, shop select new RVs at used pricing, not to mention blowout pricing on all remaining 2024s in stock. You'll also enjoy no payments until 2025 on approved credit. Finish your fall camping season in style without a single monthly payment. And if you've got a trade, we want it. Bring it to the show to get maximum trade-in value. We're even including a 1-year Bitch Fix membership with every RV purchase. Your fast track to RV service repairs. And don't miss out on our Hunter Special section to keep your hunting season going strong. All this plus free admission to the Utah Used RV Palooza. 3 days only, October 10th through the 12th at the shops at Southtown. Open daily at 10 a.m. Sponsored by Bish's RV. See you there.
Dave and Debbie.
It's impossible to digest and consume all of the news that's now coming at us through either social media or through web pages or through the radio. Pick what is most impactful in your life and focus on that. And that's what Dave and I do every single morning. We pick those issues that are most important to our listeners and we boil it down so it's digestible. It's simple to understand.
I think we're trying to find the essence of the story. You know, you can't be an expert on all things, but that doesn't mean you can't be curious and really find out more and educate yourself and learn the complexities of an issue. But I think all of us start at ground zero on everything. Ask questions, show that curiosity.
And then if you need more research, you can always go to KSLNewsRadio.com and learn more.
Listen for Dave and Dejanovic 9 to noon on KSL News Radio.
Any Hour Services free furnace sale is going on right now. If you haven't scheduled your free estimate yet, what are you waiting for? Call Any Hour Services today or schedule online at anyhourservices.com.
With the 3 things you need to know this hour, I'm Dan Bomas. First, Amendment A on Utah's fall ballot has suffered the same fate as Amendment D. A court has decided it's invalid and votes for it won't count. Second, more than 1,000 flights have been canceled at airports in the path of Hurricane Milton. And third, an airline pilot died aboard a Turkish Airlines flight from Seattle to Istanbul. Plane had to land in New York. 84 degrees and sunny in Salt Lake City. And back to Inside Sources on KSL News Radio.
Boyd Matheson divides rage from reason on Inside Sources.
Welcome back to Inside Sources here on KSL News Radio. It is great to be with you today. As always, I am Boyd Matheson. And as we round out the program today, I want to take you for a second just to an event that I was at today that changed my thinking. And that's why we love to do all of this, because I get to learn from so many different people about so many different things and so many different approaches to get to good answers and good solutions. So I was part of an event today called Coming Together to Build a Community of Kindness. And, of course, it was sponsored by our friends at One Kind Act a Day. And it was both interfaith and community. It was held over at the Hale Center Theater. And it was the most fascinating discussion. And I just need to tell you who was on this panel today because it was so powerful. So we had Bishop Phyllis Spiegel from Utah Episcopal Diocese, and she's just one of my favorite people on the planet. She's the Energizer Bunny in terms of energy, and she's just dynamic. She's out there creating energy and action and change. Of course, we had Bishop Oscar Solis from Utah Catholic Diocese, and if you ever want to lower your blood pressure, just go walk with Bishop Solis for just a minute. I guarantee you, he is peace personified. He just brings everything down and just gets to the essence of things so quickly. We also had Sandra Lucas from the Church of Scientology. And Reverend Lucas had just some brilliant insight on a host of different things. We talked about everything from poverty to mental health to environmental sustainability. How do we build these kind of bridges? And her approach was just so fascinating to me. I learned so many things from her today. And then, of course, we had our good friend Rabbi Samuel Spector from Kol Ami Synagogue. And always both entertaining and enlightening and always challenges. And one of the things I love about Rabbi Spector is that he's always learning from all of these different faith leaders. And it's such a great model in terms of being radically curious and really getting in and rolling up your sleeves and what can I learn. We also had Elder Derek Miller, Area Authority 70 from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And some of you might recognize him as part of the chamber, heads that, and of course, was also a chief of staff to former Governor Gary Herbert. And then we also had Dr. Salman Masood from Utah Muslim Civic League. Brilliant mind. Oh, my goodness. I learned so many things in terms of stewardship and how we should look at each other. he talked about it in this context of the anatomy of the soul. We often talk about anatomy in general, but the anatomy of the soul, the different dimensions. He talked about 11 different dimensions of the soul. That was new to me and just brilliant, brilliant thinking. But we had this conversation in front of community leaders, business leaders, mayors, and people who are just interested in making a difference in community and helping society to be a little bit better. And it was just one of those extraordinary moments where I think we could have solved all the world's problems if we'd maybe had one more hour. But we covered a lot of ground in all of that in terms of what it means to come together, to look at each other a little bit differently. And we talked about it in part in the context of climate change, but not the climate change that we normally talk about. This was more our societal climate change, that we have increasing heat, which, of course, is fueled by contempt and hate and anger and frustration and many of the things that we try to combat on this show, that we've got to get to different kinds of conversations where we can get the rhetoric out, get the weaponization of words out, get the pejoratives out, the demonizing those that we disagree with out, so we can have a civil conversation, and not just a civil conversation, but a better conversation, a conversation that leads us somewhere besides a bunch of likes and clicks on social media. But then we also talked about the counterpart of that societal climate change, and that is the reverse, the Arctic frost. The Arctic frost of loneliness, of isolation, of disconnection. The fact that so many of our communities have been divided, that so many are retreating to social media and not having real human connection anymore. And all of that breeds a lot of misunderstanding. And when you don't understand someone, you're more likely to demonize them, or you're more likely to project your own fears or your own insecurities onto whatever it is that they're doing. And so we went at both sides of that. The climate change that includes some increased heat because of our rhetoric that's driving wedges and dividing us, and that Arctic frost of isolation and loneliness. Many of the diseases of despair that we see in our communities today, homelessness, addiction, broken families, broken neighborhoods, broken communities. And with all of these faith leaders, these interfaith folks, we just had a different kind of conversation and went at all of those. And the amazing thing to me that came across in all of this discussion was this idea, and this actually came from Dr. Masood from the Utah Muslim Civic League, is that our job is to create a space where everyone is safe from both the hand and the tongue. So it's our actions as well as our words, and we got to create that safe space where we can have those enlightened, elevated, higher ground, common ground, holy ground kind of conversations. Well, that wraps it up for us on Inside Sources today here on KSL News Radio. I'm Boyd Matheson. Thanks for joining us. And as always, as you go out into the world today, make sure you see something that inspires, say something that uplifts, and do something that makes a difference.
KSL FM Midvale.
KSL Salt Lake City.
From the KSL Common Spirit Health Studios, this is KSL News Radio.
Utah's news, traffic, and weather station.
Good afternoon, 3 o'clock at KSL News Radio. I'm Jeff Kaplan. 84 degrees in Salt Lake City. KSL's top story is developing news. A state judge has just voided another ballot question. It means that Amendment A will be on your ballot, but the votes won't be counted for now. The amendment is dead. KSL News Radio's Jessica Lowell joins us live with the developing story. Jessica.
Jeff, Amendment A would have removed the earmark on income tax for school funding. The Utah Education Association filed the lawsuit that very closely mimicked the one for Amendment D. They said the language on the ballot is misleading and that the legislature didn't release a public announcement in the required time frame. Amendment D was voided from the ballot last month for not meeting those requirements. Now Amendment A has been voided as well because there wasn't proper notice. Utahns for Student Success, which is a bipartisan coalition of 12 organizations, including the UEA, is calling this a victory. The UEA isn't commenting on the win, and we have calls out to legislative leaders for their reaction.
So can you really dumb down for us why lawmakers wanted to change where our income tax funding goes?
They wanted to remove part of the state's food sales tax. So if they got rid of 1 3/4% in funding, they'd be short about $200 million each year for the general fund, for things like roads and infrastructure. So they wanted to free up the income tax funding to help fill in some of those gaps.
Okay, so back to Amendment A, it's still going to be on the ballot.
Yes, the ballots are already printed, and they've already gone overseas to military personnel. And we asked Salt Lake County Clerk about all the ballot confusion last month when Amendment A lawsuit was announced.
So it's analogous to, let's say, a candidate dropping out after we've already sent our ballots to the printer. So when that happens, we're able to toggle off that contest, or in this case, that question, to make sure that any votes in that are not counted and aren't released during our election night result.
Nonetheless, Lainey Chapman says you should still fill out your whole ballot, even though both are voided right now.
Okay, they won't count, at least as things now stand, but vote anyway, she says. Thanks a lot, Jessica Lowell, KSL News Time. 3:02, it's a busy day on the campaign trail. Former President Trump has been rallying in Pennsylvania. Vice President Kamala Harris got a briefing on Hurricane Milton before heading to Nevada. Milton is losing a bit of steam as it heads toward Florida. Maria Chaleos is live at the KSL National News Desk.
Jeff, Milton is barreling towards the western Florida coastline as a Category 3 storm. The storm churning up tornadoes in its path. Virtually the entire state is hunkering down. Gloria McNair is in a shelter in Tampa.
No, I've been through a lot of hurricanes, but nothing like this. So this is frightening.
Mayor Tyler Payne of Treasure Island says most of his residents have left.
Most of our residences are not.
Storm is going to make landfall and the impact that it has, but we are spring-loaded, ready to go.